Hello, my fellow American. This is Andrew J. A.J. Wilden. Herein, I will boldly and with all humbleness declare that this is one of the most important political messages you will consider in this most turbulent election year. An important message that addresses multiple critical public problems in this restless summer of 2020. This presentation's proper name is the George P. Floyd Law, the 90-day death penalty, and the American Democratic Economic Reformation. Okay. Now let's join together and find common agreement on these national problems. Please note that for all of these issues, each write-up is brief, and I've included little background. Okay? Frankly, most of us know what is going on in the world and in America. We just don't know how to fix it. Greater detail on these proposals can be found on the homepage of the platform website of the Independent Party of America, which is where you probably got to this video, or in this case, more probably podcasts. Issues to be addressed are honoring George P. Floyd's murder with near-term justice, ending all residential evictions through at least 6/30/2021 for starters, ending hunger in America now and forever, demanding the immediate refund of the COVID-19 medical supplies and services overcharges, what I call the cook. Okay? Honestly addressing our national COVID-19 crisis, dismissing Trump and the failed Republican Party on November 3rd, 2020, finally giving Joe Biden and the Democrats a true public-solving platform. As for yours truly, I am a resident of Westminster, Maryland, 21157. And for the record, I am a white, male, senior citizen, a hardcore political independent, and until recently, a registered 2020 independent candidate for president. I have written about domestic and foreign policy issues for some years, and I am solely responsible for what we are about to review. The George P. Floyd Law, the 90-day death penalty. Most people were initially drawn to this message on the TIP homepage by the hashtag George Floyd Law, 90-day death penalty. After discussing my obvious guilt law, death penalty sentencing reform for over the last 20 years, I am certain that at least 8, if not 9 out of 10 Americans will vote for this approach as this approach to justice in such cases. Now let us confront and resolve the incident that motivated many millions of Americans to take to the streets to express their collective disgust with the needless and brutal public murder of defenseless George P. Floyd. The sentencing reform proposal and all those in this presentation are directed to the attention and of the review of the following persons, including the American public in general: Alicia Garza, Black Lives Matters; Opal Tometi, Black Lives Matters; Patrice Cullors, Black Lives Matters. I hope I got those names closer right. New Jersey's U.S. Senator Cory Booker, Dr. Eddie Glaude, Princeton professor; Cornell Belser, American op-ed writer; Reverend Al Sharpton, president of the National Action Network; Pastor William J. Barber, Protestant minister, Greenleaf Christian Church; Oprah Winfrey, just because she is Oprah; and then Michael O. Freeman, Minneapolis District Attorney; Lieutenant Robert J. Kroll, Minneapolis Police Union President; Bill Maher, Overtime with Bill Maher; Steve Schmidt, American strategist; Joe Rogan, American comedian and podcast host; Abigail Disney, that family, with Millionaires for Humanity; Tom Perez, chairman of the Democratic National Committee; and finally, Joseph R. Biden Jr., the next president of the United States. My common good challenge to the leadership of Black Lives Matter. I developed this presentation to serve two important purposes that are important of importance to the common good of all Americans. Okay? The first, of course, is to respectfully offer a publicly acceptable response to the needless and heinous murder of George Floyd. I am confident that the death penalty approach that I recommend is very publicly acceptable. Okay? Also, that the simple procedure for immediately reassigning bad cops will also have widespread support. Second purpose is frankly a bit more complicated, and I define it as follows. Okay. It is to properly and publicly connect with the leaders of Black Lives Matter and the great mix of Americans that have been protesting peacefully in the streets for some months, to draw their and the public's attention to these three critical problem-solving proposals presented herein from the TIPA platform, okay, on food, housing, and the cuck. More on that later. To then specifically expand the scope of issues being promoted by the millions of brave protesters and help grow their numbers by many more millions, okay, in July and August, okay. July and August to demand immediate action on these issues, okay, and the others I'll be bringing forward in the next few months. I must note I'm a writer, not a reader, so please bear with me and I'll give you the best shot that I can here, okay? To patriotically promote the elected end of the failure Trump and the Republican Party in Congress, including 23 U.S. Senate and 205 U.S. House seats up for election on November 3rd, as well as Republicans at the state and local levels across the nation, because they sure as hell no longer care about our common good. Okay? And finally, for the American electorate, the voters, to more than encourage all Democrats and independents running for office this year to embrace these very proposals and many more of the 40-plus proposals in that problem-solving platform. Leadership requires vision, imagination, and determination, and the ability to lead. Leadership is taking people where they want and need to go, but do not know how to get there. Now let us bring fair and true justice down upon George Floyd's killer, and declare our justice to be delivered in all such heinous cases going forward. Give me a little drink here. The best solutions are simple and actually address the problem at hand. I'm a professional problem solver. Simply stated, this reform declares and demands that if a man or a woman of their own free will acts to take the physical life of one or more men, women, and children, and that crime is provable based on hard evidence such as video or multiple credible witnesses, that the obvious guilt law, OGL as I call it, death penalty sentence will be applied, must be applied. These are the OGL reform guidelines. The perpetrator will receive a single and near-term standard court trial. The perpetrator will be rightfully convicted of murder based upon hard and absolute evidence. No plea bargaining will be permitted. No insanity plea will be permitted, with the possible exception of the classic crime of passion. Okay? No appeals will be granted because of the hard evidence in such cases. The criminal will then receive the only sentence allowed under the absolute OGL sentencing reform. The predetermined sentence to be ordered by the court will be death by lethal injection. The sentence will be properly administered no more than 90 days after the date the guilty verdict and sentence was handed down by the court. Thus, under the OGL sentencing reform, the public's acceptable and assigned justice will have been carried out. Thus, the family and friends of victims will have the blessings of near-term closure on that court case and be allowed to continue their healing process in peace. Okay? Also, they will not be dragged through courtrooms for years, if not decades, and be forced to keep reliving the horrific experience and personal loss over and over again. You know, victims' rights. What a concept. The OJL reform will become a federal law. It will serve to override any state laws in such cases, including appeals, plea bargains, sentencing, and the application of the death penalty by lethal injection, and without exception. Therefore, we're setting a clear standard of justice that the American public both supports and demands in all such cases. I'm challenging all Americans to join together in demanding that the OJL sentencing reform be immediately implemented, and demand that it first be applied in the George P. Floyd murder case. True justice is really as straightforward and uncomplicated as that, folks. We are through with the never-ending legal proceedings and endless appeals granted to obviously guilty criminals, especially in such heinous cases. We frankly have better things to do with our taxpayer money. Okay? The usual practice of the law in such cases has not made Americans safer from such heinous crimes. Second, under this particular reform, I call it time to reassign bad cops now. This fair proposal is directed to Lieutenant Robert J. Kroll, Minnesota Police Union President in particular. Second action to be taken to help satisfy the proper public uprising that has been going on is summed up by the new sign for protesters to carry around and declare, "Reassign bad cops now." I propose that each police station or barracks be charged to identify up to, let's say, 2% of the street duty officers. The number will, of course, vary by the size of a given barracks, that are well documented as being the worst public abusers, and to have those bad cops reassigned from street duty no later than August 31st of 2020, a month and a half from now. I respectfully challenge the Minnesota Police Union to immediately embrace and back this fair action. Thus, the public will see direct and corrective action being taken now. Police unions need to back this reform across the country for the sake of the vast majority of good cops, okay, and their overall public credibility. As a result, both the vast majority of good cops and the public will be rid of bad cops. To reassign bad cops now reform must be accomplished nationwide this summer, and by August 31st would be appropriate. Two special announcements now. Okay, to me, under no circumstances will any K through 12 students be allowed to attend public or parochial schools with in-school classes until at least January of 2021, and most likely not then either. The dictator Trump will not be allowed to bully anyone into such a suicidal situation. The press must now challenge Trump to answer the following two questions. 1. Which D.C. public school will he and Melania be sending their son to in August? Fair. Okay. And secondly, what is Trump's acceptable student kill factor for K-12 students in the coming school year? A weekly number would be nice. But overall, this is not going to be allowed to happen, period. Okay. Secondly, and I know I'm not the first to suggest this, okay? But this is why I don't think Joe Biden should participate in any presidential debates with Trump, okay? Biden is ahead and will beat Trump and does not need to be bothered with these debates. Trump was a lame duck before COVID-19 arrived, as far as I've been able to evaluate, and as COVID-19 arrived and certified his leadership incompetence, okay? And people are dying every day because of that. The American public will be spared the agony of Trump's antics before, during, and after each debate. Please spare us that. Also, it would only be fitting if we do that, or if he does that. Trump enjoys busting political norms, like not releasing his tax returns, releasing his college transcripts, releasing his medical results, and refusing to cooperate with the Democrats in Congress every chance he gets. And most of all, my fellow Americans, because it will drive Trump absolutely nuts. Okay, now back to the business at hand. The 2020 American Democratic Economic Reforms. Okay? Prudent and practical economic support is what we need. Let us necessarily turn our collective peaceful wrath to the hard realities of day-to-day life in America and the publicly dysfunctional status of our national politics. I am a well-experienced problem solver, and our America is a business with many problems right now that demand fixing starting this summer, okay? Not to wait for an election. And I do this for the common good of all my fellow Americans because I believe that every life counts. First, no more residential evictions through June 30, 2021. Once and forever, all Americans will be guaranteed a fixed address. Okay? Excuse me. Water here. Will be guaranteed a fixed address. A tedious but workable program that will begin this summer during the COVID-19 era. Okay? Starting in mid-March, when COVID-19 first hit our economy, tens of millions of hardworking Americans were suddenly unemployed and through no fault of their own. Okay, they were workers. Add to that the hard fact that half of Americans were already living month to month, okay, and have or had only about $400 in savings. That's before COVID-19 threw tens of millions out of work. The week ending July 11th was the 17th straight week that more than 1 million states' unemployment claims were filed. Okay? Thus, paying the mortgage, rent, or lot fees quickly became a severe problem for many, and every month it's only getting worse. To address that situation, most, if not all, state governors declared no one could be evicted for such non-payment through June 30th of 2020, right, last month. That was a practical first step. Our approach is as follows. The governors of all 50 states and D.C. government, okay, controls that decision, not the Congress and not the White House, thank God. There will be no residential evictions due to non-payment of mortgage, rent, or lot fees allowed nationwide through June 30th of 2021. Okay? Yes, some 12 months from now. That is quite realistic given the lingering COVID-19-driven economic problems and unemployment situation. You ask, how can that happen without bankrupting the nation? Well, simply put, taxpayers aren't going to foot the bill for this. Okay? Simply put, we the people bailed the banks and Wall Street out in 2008 and 2009. Therefore, they will now return the favor and bail us out in 2020 and 2021, or longer than that if need be. Yes, they may make a little less money that year, but they'll get over it. Such is life. They will just have to deal with it all. And again, without a single taxpayer dollar of our help. This is not negotiable. This is where the banks and Wall Street work their spreadsheet magic, okay, in their back rooms. Plan guidelines. Typically, when mortgage payments on a residential owner-occupied property are missed, the leaders have the option, called forbearance, of placing the missed payment on the end of the subject loan. No problem. That happens all the time. It was reported in a recent Senate hearing towards the end of June that some 4.7 million mortgage payments were missed in June, okay? Along with up to 1/3 of all rental payments, okay, which again is a rough number, but still frightening, okay? And that was only June, okay? Now, federal and state governments will not borrow money to pay anyone's mortgage or rent or lot fees. That would truly be a national financial suicide, okay? Rental landlords with mortgages on any tenant-occupied properties where rent is not being paid will also be allowed to have missed payments moved to the end of the applicable property loan, and again through June of 2021, okay, as needed. Mobile home loans are often set up as vehicle loans, in case you didn't know that, and they also will be included under this program. The landlords, tenants, homeowners, and lenders will all be put on federal notice not to abuse this program. There will be some abuse, that's the way it works, but we'll be hard on it. In all situations, though, monthly utilities, tax, and insurance payments must still be dealt with. Responsible homeowners and rental landlords will be given special financing options by the lenders to help them through the next year or two. Okay, this will be worked out with the lenders and without taxpayer support. Okay. Again, these are hard depression-level times and will be approached realistically to keep American families in their current housing. Okay, greed cannot, and will not be tolerated. No more homelessness. Okay, we will not repeat what happened in 1929 when people couldn't pay their rent or mortgage. They were thrown out into the street. You had people wandering the country, and all these houses sitting empty. That stupidity will not repeat itself. Okay. Extra financial resources will be required for housing and food proposals. The food proposals next. To deal realistically with funding both the housing and food reforms in this depression-level event, Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax concept will be reviewed for probable application. Okay? Also, numerous millionaires and billionaires are already volunteering to help their fellow Americans, and good for them. That's the way it should be. This is America. Okay? Okay, they are setting a good example. They are giving, their giving will be coordinated, however. Okay? Those people happen to include Abigail Disney, yes, from that family, and the group she's involved with called Millionaires for Humanity. Okay? And to anyone that begins to whine about redistribution of wealth, I virtually slap them. Okay? I am not a liberal or progressive. I am a public problem solver. I declare to all that the historic and near criminal American wealth imbalance that Bernie Sanders made this nation so aware of, okay, has only been made worse by COVID-19. Okay? Absolutely worse. The proper name for what we are starting to do in 2020 is the fair and equitable decentralization of wealth. Okay, because it is way too centralized. Prudent and practical domestic policy. It's fair. Okay? Now we move on to hunger. There will be no more hunger in America. Okay? We will demand that once and for all Americans will be guaranteed food security. That the required and involuntary food industry transition, okay, will begin this summer and progress into 2021. We're going to convert the food industry. Okay, again. Now, all Americans will have access to decent, affordable food. The entire American food industry is put on notice. Okay, their new corporate missions will be to adequately feed all of the American people everywhere. That is, with local availability of quality and affordable food. Okay. The long-existing national disgrace of food insecurity has exploded into a full-blown public nightmare due to the coronavirus. Millions of people in food lines. Right now, some 1 out of 6 Americans and as many as 1 in 4 children have food insecurity. It's only getting worse. We will finally confront and resolve this inhuman condition. Plan for food industry reformation. To be clear, we are demanding the complete reformation of the food industry in America, from farms and fishing to the grocery store shelves, because that is what's going to be required to do this. The vast majority of Americans will vote for what you are about to hear in a heartbeat. I've talked to many of them, and they go, sure. Whenever I have reviewed this proposal with people in recent years, they are in favor of it because the grocery prices are out of control, especially over the last 4 to 6 years. Okay? Their first comment, however, is normally that we must take care of the farmers, and of course we will. Food prices will need to be capped, hopefully starting in August, and will remain so into 2021 as we work through this corporate transition. Okay? Also, food product content sizes will not be allowed to be reduced. Okay? You know, like this 5-pound bag of sugar, which is now 4 pounds. Okay? Anyway, most grocery store corporations, with the exception of high-end stores like Whole Foods, okay, will need to begin their involuntary corporate conversion to what I call a commissary-type operation. Okay? And yes, that will include Walmart. Going to take out the big boy. All of this because the people cannot afford to buy groceries. And food, the last time I checked, is sort of a necessity, okay, for decent health anyway. All food-related products will be removed from commodity market trading. That'll zing them. The entire food industry will, in the next few years, become, in practicality, a public utility. Okay? Existing stockholders will be bought out over a number of years, which frees up that money to be reinvested someplace else. Corporations will remain private companies, but their charter will be to guarantee all Americans will have locally available food at the lowest prices possible. That may sound completely outrageous, but if you can develop a better way, okay, to guarantee food security for every single American, please write it down and let us know now. Okay? Just whine, come back with a better solution. Please seriously reflect on the hard fact that throughout history, many national revolution was started because of the lack of food. Okay? Many millions of our people are already in food lines and food bank lines. Okay? Sitting miles, waiting in long lines to do just to get some food. That desperate situation will grow worse each month, and people will not be happy. That's why I want to get the protesters to buy into these other things, because we're going to have a mini revolution here making this happen, but it's going to be done peacefully. But we're going to let Congress know very, very obviously that we're not buying it anymore. We're not putting up with it, both in housing and food, and we'll get to medical things in another presentation. I have a solution for that. Okay, realistically, unless the Congress and all 50 state governors take immediate action to prudently address both housing stability and food security, things could turn very ugly, I think, in August. I'm not suggesting it or demanding it or anything suggesting it. I'm just saying that's the natural course of events right now. The requirement for legislative leadership could not be more clear and of greater urgency, because remember, as it is said, those that do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Okay. Now, what is the CUC? Fund the CUC now. Just what is the CUC? This unique and unexpected term I created means refund the COVID-19 unit charges, CUC, C-U-C. This public action proposal directly calls out the obscene and predatory overcharging by many vendors for medical supplies and services, MSS, okay, since the very start of the COVID-19 national health crisis. Okay? So let's follow the CUC to what they used to call windfall profits, unearned profits. Here's a prime example taken from one of Governor Andrew Cuomo's first daily press conferences in March, and he did a great job with those. His example was, the last time we ordered this particular item, the unit price was 80 cents. Today, the unit price is $4. So there it is. Okay. Thus, the abusive CUC overcharge, in this particular case, is $3.20. Imagine that times hundreds and thousands of items. That overpricing will be well publicized, stopped, and overcharges to date will be refunded starting this summer. Okay? The disgraceful enormity of these overcharges will disgust the American public. It's just grim. In this crisis, corporations will need to be satisfied selling far more products and services at the pre-COVID-19 prices, meaning they got to be happy selling at 80 cents. Okay, that much alone they're getting increased business volume for the year, which they weren't planning on their budgets. This is new money, and they will have to profit. Okay, and that's what they will get their profit from. Okay, everything in the overcharge will be returned, and we're going to get that fixed in 2020, so we don't have to deal with it so much in 2021. And because we did such a terrible job, okay, at mitigating this, the amount of money poured into testing and medical products and services is horrific, and it must be completely minimized, or the economy will be wrecked just on that alone. Thank you, Mr. Trump. Okay. It's like overcharging soldiers for bullets and bandages in a wartime. The truly darkest side of the low supply and high demand mentality has showed its ugly face and crushed state and other local budgets. Okay? This corporate greed is the direct result of Trump, again, not doing his job. He would not prudently and aggressively enforce the Defense Production Act, the DPA, to cap costs and control the production of all needed medical supplies. Okay? In this true national health and economic crisis, made both things worse. The immediate and ongoing impact on state budgets has already contributed to the layoffs of well over 1.5 state and local employees, and that was a few weeks ago. Okay, the cuts also hit hospitals, business entities of all types and sizes, family budgets, and others. One hard reason why we are still hearing that hospitals do not have enough PPE is that some of them simply cannot afford to buy it anymore, even if they can find it. Right? COVID-19 is threatening the health of 328 million Americans, and therefore it is a domestic war. Trump's leadership incompetence is making the related economic crisis far worse and just causing more of our loved ones to die. Okay? He doesn't care. And now he ignorantly wants to force our children to start back to school in August. And that is what I call beyond sense, or BS. The American press and laid off workers to facilitate this cut refund process. The New York Times is challenged to set an example, starting with the invoice Governor Cuomo referenced in that press conference, 80 cents, $3.20, okay? And to be encouraged by New York State and local laid-off employees. Press in all 50 states, okay, are more than encouraged to investigate MSS pricing, okay, across the full inventory of COVID-19 products and services, okay, testing, labs, yada, yada, yada. They need to publish invoice-level totals on abuses in their online publications so the public can see it. And as needed, vendors will be publicly embarrassed into doing the right thing. This action must start this summer, if not immediately, okay, with direct refunds to start ASAP and well before Labor Day. This is going to come right, this is going to be major dollars back into every state and hospital budget. Again, laid-off state and local employees will need to aggressively pursue news entities in their cities and states to attack this public abuse. And some of them, as a result, may very well get their jobs back. Good deal. Now, short break here.